Welcome to First Flight High School for this month's Board of Education meeting. The mission of the Dare County Board of Education is to support the students and staff by providing the necessary resources and support to ensure that every student is successful. Dare County schools strive to empower every student to be an innovative problem solver, an engaged global citizen. Together, we are building extraordinary schools.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of the Dare County Board of Education to order. Today is May 11th, 2021. The time is 5:04, and we are meeting at First Flight High School. And we'll take a moment of silence. Thank you, everyone. Next up, we'll have Frank Hester do the welcome and pledge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor and privilege to be here before you today. Thank you for those that are in the audience and those watching from home. We have come a long ways from last year this time, and I'm glad for all the great success that's been going on within the school system. And I'm always looking for those little pieces of silver lining that show that we are moving in the right direction. And one of those was a piece of information that came out, I think it was last week I saw it, from U.S. News and World Report of 2021 Best High Schools in North Carolina. And out of 654 North Carolina schools, Manteo High School ranked 76, First Flight High School ranked 80, and Cape Hatteras Secondary School 86, out of a total of 23,553 schools throughout the whole country. So we can see that Dare County is doing what it can to put kids first, and that doesn't happen without the parent support and the teachers, bus drivers, culinary people. It definitely takes the whole village to get us to where we are. And I'd like to thank all of you guys for your patience with us in this difficult time making the decisions that we made. And we look forward to continue to move forward and continue for our kids to grow. And much thanks again to the teachers and central staff. So if you would join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, it would be greatly appreciated. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Frank. Next up, I'll have the approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair, I move we approve the agenda.
A motion by Ms. Lawler, second by Ms. Boswell. Oh.
Thank you. Okay. You need a motion to amend the agenda to add.
Oh, that's right.
At item 9D under the consent agenda, approval of personnel recommendations for contract extensions and renewals. And at Roman numeral 12B, as in Bravo, a closed session for legal and student matters.
Does one of the board members need to reiterate that?
Pardon me?
Does somebody
One of
need
the-
to reiterate?
One of the board members can just say so moved.
So
So
moved.
moved. There we go. Yes.
That was Ms. Bothwell.
Second.
Mr. Twitty?
And a second by Mr. Twitty. So we're approving the amended agenda, right?
You need approving amendments to the agenda.
Approving amendments to the agenda. So we have a motion by Ms. Lawler, a second by Mr. Twitty. Any further discussion?
Ms.
No,
Bothwell.
Ms.
Ms.
Boswell.
Boswell.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you
I
seconded.
second it.
She seconded the correct
No,
motion.
Ms. Bothwell made the motion, Mr. Twitty seconded.
Right.
Okay. Got it.
Just go with it. It's good.
We're just going to go with that. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Now
we
you
have
need a
an
motion
agenda.
to approve the agenda as amended.
Now we need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll try that.
As amended. A motion by Mr. Tauber to approve the agenda as amended.
I second.
Second.
A second from Mr. Hester. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So we had a little law lesson today, too, on how we do these motions. Okay, next up, we have announcements.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. I've got several announcements. First, I want to thank our board members who were able to join us this past Saturday out at Cape Hatteras Secondary School, where we had a wonderful ceremony naming the new renovated field house after former teacher, coach, athletic director Scott Day. It was quite a day. Next, a nice recognition. So the North Carolina Association of School Administrators highlighted Dare County schools in their spotlight that goes out to all 115 school districts today, actually Sunday, highlighting our dual language immersion program and the fact that we're the only district in the state that has dual language in every elementary school. So that was a nice recognition. Next, Ms. Kinzel's put together a nice program we're looking forward to this Friday, where we recognize all of our retirees and Teachers of the Year, and Principal Chuck Lansing of First Valley High School, who's our Principal of the Year. Well deserved. Next, so Dr. Parker and I have been working kind of informally in trying to recruit some universities for the last couple years who we might be able to partner with in a master's program for our Dare County teachers who may want to be aspiring administrators. And as you know, we started our Emerging Leaders program over the last year and a half, and there's a new grant that's come out through the Principal Fellows where NC State has contacted us to see if we would be interested in supporting a grant to potentially bring a principal preparation program to Dare County. And there's 19 other school districts that have at least submitted letters of support. And what it can mean for us is we could be in a position to have a very unique program where we could select, teachers could apply, and we could select teachers that we would recommend to North Carolina State University to go on a Master's of Educational Leadership program. And all of the delivery of instruction would be online, directed right here from Dare County. So teachers would not have to travel to state. They would have the benefit potentially of having state instructors come during the summer. And then one of the biggest benefits, if you don't know, NC State has a nationally recognized program. And one of the bigger benefits that is very unlike most other university programs is that there's a one-year internship, an entire year internship as an administrator, as opposed to, we have some interns right now who can only do their internship during a planning period. So that's highly beneficial for the preparation of future leaders, and of course, building the bridge in principal preparation for Dare County. So we're still at initial stages in providing a letter of support, and we'll have more information, and we'll keep our fingers crossed and hope at some point that we'll be able to engage with NC State. And it's a wonderful program, and I think it can mean a lot to our teachers here in Dare County. Next, we talked probably 4 or 5 months ago about the possibility of moving our bell schedule, and we decided in the end we're going to leave our bell schedule the same going into the next school year versus this year, and frankly, we've had enough change. So we're going to leave that be. And we were able to pull 3 buses off the road with some revamping we did. We may be able to pull 2 more buses off the road, which means that we'll have about $120,000 more that could go into the transportation budget or cost savings. 2 other items. I'm sure everyone has heard of was informed by the governor in the Executive Order 209 about the lifting of masks, the use of masks outside. And so we've had the North Carolina K-12 Public Health Toolkit is now aligned with that executive order. And so when kids go outside now for recess, they don't have to wear masks. Our athletes don't have to wear masks outside. Participants who are coming to sporting events don't have to wear masks. There are a couple of caveats there. So just kind of reading from the latest amendment. So examples of where and when masks are not required include students outside for recess, PE teachers outside with kids, students are participating with a traditional class outdoors, 4-year-olds who are in preschool don't have to wear masks, and then there's also a caveat where teachers who are inside in a planning period by themselves don't have to wear a mask. So we're moving in that direction. The changes, that's not all-inclusive. The changes mean that masks are no longer required outdoors at schools, but are recommended still in the following couple situations. Anyone who is fully not vaccinated and cannot socially distance within 6 feet. And it's also strongly recommended when you have a large crowd gathering outside that masks are still an option. We had a principals meeting this morning and talked through morning and afternoon dismissal and whether we should still have adults wearing masks during those times. And the principals were majority in favor, if not all, of making it optional for staff. So we have communicated that to staff so that parents know when they drop their kids off. If they see an adult outside, they may or may not have a mask on, but once we go into the school building, everyone is still required to wear a mask. So, and then lastly, I know we're all dealing with hearing about the gas crisis, and if you rode up and down the bypass today, you saw bags over fuel pumps and long lines. Just out of curiosity, I did call their transportation director thinking about bus fuel. Currently, we do have enough fuel for the next 3 weeks. Hopefully this gets resolved, as I understand it, potentially in the next 72 hours or so. If there was a continued crisis and there was no gas available, Alex Chandler, who's our director of transportation, feels that if we pulled athletic buses off, then we could get to the end of the school year with our yellow buses. We don't want to have to entertain that, but if asked, that's our current position. And the contacts of the Department of Public Instruction have told him they think it's, they have at least moderate confidence that this should resolve itself rather quickly. So, but these are the things you think about when things like this pop up. So, so I'll have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Farley. Yeah, the gas shortage is going to be interesting with all the tourists here. Okay, we have Keith Parker with recognitions.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We tonight are very excited to have with us Principal Rachel Benton from Cape Hatteras Elementary School. And Ms. Benton is going to come forward and share some of her staff and student recognitions. And then she's also, following that, prepared an instructional highlight for the board to see about some of the work going on at Cape Hatteras Elementary School. And it's well timed because Rachel ran into a little bit of traffic as well as I believe you did as well, Madam Chairman, but literally as you were moving to the recognition agenda, Rachel walked right in. So I think that's impeccable timing. So with that, we're going to ask Principal Benton to come forward and share the recognitions.
And while Principal Benton's coming up, I also have a recognition. I want to welcome Gabby McClary from First Light High School, who's working behind the scenes in our camera crew this afternoon, and Ileana Howduggy, excuse me. Got it right second time, right? Okay, thank you, Ileana. Great work, ladies. We're glad you joined us and appreciate all you're doing at First Flight. Ms. Benton?
Thank you, Dr. Farley. Good evening. It's very nice to see you all. Thank you for having me. Yes, there was a dump truck that overturned, so we were in a long line of traffic. But I'm here. I made it. So I want to open up recognitions with the student recognitions. I want to highlight our CHES North Carolina Science Olympiad team. Even though we weren't able to do it in the traditional sense, they did compete virtually on Saturday, April 17th. They prepared for hours after school and on weekends virtually, did some things at home, and some of our students even won some statewide challenges during that preparation. So in the competition, it included multiple events, including topics such as computer coding, animal identification, rocks and minerals, weather, and more, and we could not be more proud of them. So the names of those students are Adair Zavala, Emily Chestnut, Gisele Torres, Charlie Waterfield, Gunnar Johnson, Nate Garcia, Daniel Briones, Jack Fuller, and Sam Davis. I also want to recognize their coaches, who are our librarian, Miss Jen Augustin, Miss Kristen Gray, who is a 4th grade teacher, and Miss Christina Tracy, who is one of our 5th grade teachers. And now I'm going to move into our staff recognitions. Miss Kristen Gray, again, fourth grade teacher, she was awarded a grant from the North Carolina Aquarium Society. Her class received access to a total of 4 learning modules. Each module explored different animals and ecosystems. So very proud of her for that. She also, Miss Kristen Gray, was highlighted as one of the 3 teachers from Dare County as the Wavy News 10 Excellent Educator. Then we have Miss Hannah Cornish. She is an instructional assistant and recently was promoted to 2nd grade virtual DLI English teacher. Hannah received a grant from Hatteras Island Youth Education Fund in the fall for approximately $400. This grant supplied all of our school with a lot of STEM activities. And she did that as an instructional assistant, so I was very proud of her for that. She also graduated with her master's in elementary education in December, and she became a North Carolina licensed teacher in February, and then we hired her as a 2nd grade DLI position in March, so very exciting. 3rd grade teachers, Trish Decker and Beverly Hagee, they were awarded together a Dare County Education Foundation grant. With this grant, that was approximately $800. They were able to purchase lap desks and seat cushions for outdoor learning for both of their 3rd grade classrooms. We also have Miss Gabrielle Gettings, who is our low incidence EC teacher. She received a grant for $3,000 from Cape Hatteras Electric Co-op for something called a hands-on library. And what she's doing is building a plethora of hands-on activities for her EC students. Because it increases their knowledge and skills by gaining a better concept of basic skills for them. And also Miss Jen Augustin again, who is our librarian. She received a grant for $700 from Hatteras Island Youth Education Fund for something called a Little Free Library. You've probably seen some of those around different communities. We're now going to have one at Cape Hatteras Elementary School with children's books. And what's super exciting is we are going to dedicate that to former CHES principal, Mr. Ray Gray. We're having a ceremony this coming up Friday to do that, so we're all very excited. Then we have a team that has dedicated hours upon hours outside of school for an NCDPI Go Open Culturally Relevant and Responsive Teaching cohort. That is Stephanie Tenpenny, who is an EC teacher, Diane Brown, assistant principal, Jen Augustin, librarian, April Oden, who is our instructional technology facilitator and instructional coach, and Manfredo de la Cruz, who is the 2nd and 3rd grade Spanish DLI instructor. They have worked tirelessly to analyze instructional resources from something called Ed Open, and very proud of the work they're doing. They've also created something that they're going to bring back to our school, having to do with a lesson plan template and having our whole staff look at their lesson plan in a different way. And then we had an exciting event happen on March 18th at school this year. So a substitute was in our building in a 3rd grade classroom, and it was during lunch, and she began to choke on a cherry tomato from her salad. And Jen Augustin happened to be in the room because she's a pod partner, and she performed the Heimlich and was able to save her life. So I wanted to recognize Jen for that heroic action. She stayed calm, modeled for students exactly how to behave through that whole incident. And then last but definitely not least, I would like to recognize another instructional assistant at our school. Her name is Shannon Gavetti, and she will be graduating, or actually just graduated last Friday from East Carolina University with her bachelor's degree in elementary education. So we have 2 homegrown teachers coming right up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rachel. Exciting stuff happening. And then we also have the instructional highlights. Ms. Flora?
Good evening, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, Board, Dr. Farley. I'm always excited to get up here and brag on the elementary schools in Dare County. As I was brainstorming with Ms. Benton of all the things that we could showcase from CHES, there was one idea that really stuck out to me, and that's what you're going to hear about tonight. So tonight's story is all about meeting children where they are, literally and figuratively, and how CHES hit the road for learning. So back to the mic, Miss Rachel Benton.
So before we watch the video, I just want to tell you a little bit how this whole concept was birthed. So when we began remote learning in October, we started something called CHE Helps. Similar to Manio Middle School, it was just an after school from 3 to 4. Admin team opened up a Google Meet, and we were there for anybody who needed it, whether it was teachers, families, students, whatever they needed, we were there every day. And so we were all sitting around, and we had been getting phone calls about some kids who were struggling because of the lack of connection and some very frustrated parents. And so we were like, hey, we just need to go to them. So we decided that CHE Helps would hit the road, and we decided we would go to each village and bring some goodies to our kids and hang out with them, talk to them, help them with homework, technology. And so what we have for you is a video with some teachers and students who are going to tell you about that experience.
During the heart of the pandemic, we started an initiative. The initiative that we came up with was called Hit the Road, and that's exactly what we did. Teachers got in buses, some carpooled in cars. We had been looking at kids on the screen, and we hadn't really connected with them face to face, and we wanted to go out into the community. So we visited each village twice, once in December and once in February, to go see the kids face to face. The dynamic of then the relationship of actually seeing kids and them seeing us and meeting needs. We were able to help them with anything they needed. While we were out visiting and helping them, we were also able to bring them books as well as technology. If they needed any technology or something repaired, we replaced it and put that in their hands so that they could continue when they went back to virtual learning.
As a school librarian, I knew how important it was to get books in the hands of our CHS readers. While we offered curbside checkout at our school and at the public library, it's just not as convenient as having the books delivered to you in your village. We love getting out and meeting the kids and seeing them at the lunch delivery sites, and we sold out the lunches. It drew the kids out to the event, and it was just a wonderful thing for all.
I appreciated Hit the Road. I had a really good lunch and got to see my teachers.
I think it's really important that the teachers came to see us because I haven't seen them in a long time.
As the technology facilitator here at Cape Hatteras Elementary School, CHES Hits the Road started with Google Meets. With these Google Meets, we are seeing some social emotional pieces that we were not able to necessarily meet the needs of everyone, parents and students alike. As we traveled from village to village, we were able to see the kids and answer questions about technology and also just say hello. But the kids were just so glad to see us and the parents were so happy to see us. They just needed to get out and kind of feel like they were in touch with us again in person.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
That was a great idea, nice presentation, and it's very interesting. I've really enjoyed seeing how each of the schools have kind of adapted their own way of kind of getting through this and meeting the kids and finding their, the ways that work for each individual school, and the principals have just done an amazing job of leading that. So, thank you. Next up, we have public comment. Dr. Parker, do we have any public comment? So I don't have to read this whole paragraph today. Yay! Okay. Next up, we have approval of the consent agenda, which includes the personnel consent agenda, minutes from April 1, budget workshop, April 1 special, April 13th special meeting, April 13th regular meeting, the finance budget amendments, and then we have the approval of the class size waiver request, approval of the grants for Cape Hatteras Secondary School, approval of Carolina Hunger Initiative Grant, and the approval of personnel recommendations for contract extensions and renewals. Anybody have any questions about any of those things?
Madam Chair, I move we approve the consent agenda.
A motion we approve the agenda by Ms. Lawler,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Woody. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next, we have up reports or items for information. We have Dr. Farley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've got 3 topics tonight. We'll start with the summer learning program in an overview. Thank you, Dr. Parker. So Dare County Schools will offer summer learning opportunities for at-risk students as outlined in Session Law 2021-7 to mitigate learning loss as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. DCS will focus on serving students within the 30-day time frame by combining 2 separate sessions to serve our at-risk students. Students who we've actually opened registration up to all students across the county. We'll talk a little bit about how many students have registered in a moment. So we had, via legislation, the opportunity to either have 30 days, a 30-day learning program, or 150 hours of instruction. And when we started to map out different opportunities and challenges under each of those, we decided to go with the 30-day option. K-8 students will be provided core instruction in the areas of reading, math, and science. High school students will be provided with in-person instruction in end-of-course subjects, access to modules and teacher support for credit recovery, and given various opportunities to expand their curriculum knowledge through project-based experiences and partnerships in the community. So session 1, which will be a half-day session from 8 to 12, will operate June 14th through the 17th. This will be the first week after school lets out, Monday through Thursday. The second week will be the 21st to the 24th, and then students will come back on the 28th and the 29th. So this will be a 10-day program from 8 to 12. The focus will be on instruction, remediation, and end-of-grade or end-of-course subjects. So this will look a little bit different than the summer bridge, which we'll talk about in a moment. Breakfast, lunch, and physical activity will be incorporated into the school day, and transportation will be provided. Session 2, full day, which will be what we're going to call our Summer Bridge program, which will run 4 weeks, starting July 19th through August 13th. This precedes the start of school in mid-August. This will actually be a Monday through Friday program. There'll be a focus on core instruction during part of the day, essentially the morning, and then STEAM enrichment activities in the latter part of the day. Breakfast, lunch, and physical activity, which is necessary through the general statute and great practice, will be incorporated throughout the day, and we again will provide transportation. So our sites, as we've determined through our registration process, will be Cape Hatteras Elementary, First Flight Elementary, Kitty Hawk Elementary, and Manio Elementary. NAGS Head students who've registered for summer will attend the First Flight campus. Middle and high, we will have sites at Cape Hatteras Secondary, First Flight Middle, First Flight High, Manio Middle, and Manio High. Depending upon, registration is moving every day, so it's possible we don't have as much students or as many students who have registered middle and high. We may combine some of those sites, so it's possible that we could have a middle and high program at First Flight High School or at Manio High School. So we still have moving targets with the registration. So current interest. We had a tremendous amount of staff who were interested in working this summer, which is great. So we have 170 staff members who've applied to work. Ms. Flora, working with K-5, Dr. Parker with 612, is working through a process where we have a scoring rubric based upon performance and experience and different areas, whether a teacher has national boards and so on, to try to determine who we will invite to work, and certainly principal recommendation. Currently, we have about 450 students who have registered. So we are required by the law to invite all at-risk students. So typically, the primary categories of students who are at risk would be for attendance and certainly grades. But we opened up the opportunity for everyone to attend, and so that 450 students include students who are at risk and then parents who just want their children to get some additional learning to close learning gap loss due to the pandemic. We will keep the registration open because we know families are still making decisions about rec department camps and vacations and so on. So that will stay open, and hopefully that's not a surprising figure when we talk about trying to project how many students would attend. We'd love to see more. We hope to see more. And that could look a lot different just in the next couple of weeks. But currently we've got 450 students spread with probably at least 65% of those, bless you, 65% of those being elementary.
Quick question.
Yes.
Are the ones that are registered right now, are they registered for both sessions, or do you have to register for both, or can you do one or the other?
Great questions. So we opened it up so anyone who wants to attend all 6 weeks can. And then we have parents and students who have decided we just want the first 2 weeks or we want the second leg in Summer Bridge. And so, we can't control when they come, so they could actually sign up for all 6, and then there's a family vacation at the end of July and they don't attend. But we've opened up the opportunity for everyone to attend as often as they would like. We'll see the sample schedule here in a few moments. The first session is more focused on remediation, credit recovery, coming out of end of grade tests, remediation. And then the second Summer Bridge is more about core instruction in the morning and then more enrichment in the afternoon. And we'll get into some samples here in a moment. Sure. If you can jump back for a second, Keith. Thank you. Students who are at risk or considered at risk who have not registered are still going to get a personal invitation. So we're trying to drum up interest, and parents will be getting a letter if their child has been failing or has had attendance issues, and it's still optional, so there's no mandate. The mandate is we have to offer programs. And again, registration will stay open throughout the summer. We would encourage families to register because it helps us with staffing and planning, but we won't deny anyone who even shows up July 19th, first day. Joe?
John, do we have a method of assessing the success of a program like that? I mean, how are we?
Right, great question. So part of the mandate in the law that was passed is we have to do pre and post assessments. Where it gets really tricky, and the state is providing those to us, where it gets really tricky is if a student only attends 2 weeks, or if a student attends 1 week, and then you're given a pre and a post assessment, and it's hard to measure growth, obviously, in that short amount of time. But that is part of the mandate, and there are certain reporting features that Ms. Kinsel's been working on that will go to DPI, and then I think eventually, it might be January, according to the law, it goes to the General Assembly. So there will be reports, but I'm not sure of, how those are going to be vetted, because you have 115 school districts who are going to be doing 115 different things, although the themes of what you should be teaching are supposed to be consistent, but it's going to be hard to measure, from district to district. What we hope to see is if we have students who attend all 6 weeks or attend at least 4 weeks, you would expect to see some growth. But that's still yet to be determined. So the answer is yes, but we'll have to take some of those results with a grain of salt, potentially based upon attendance.
Based on that question, I have no doubt you will implement a program that will be beneficial to the children.
Well, I appreciate it, and that's all about our teachers, So if we can get kids to attend a program, we know that we're going to put them in classrooms with highly effective staff, and they will get a lot out of the program. And the other thing that's kind of exciting in teacher world is when we get to the Summer Bridge and look at the schedule, we're talking about a lot of enrichment activities for kids, clubs, intramurals, STEAM activities, web course design. Teachers have got all kinds of ideas. So the enrichment aspect of that will be fun. And then we're also building in, as we should, and it's required, social emotional learning opportunities for kids. So it's pretty all-encompassing. We feel very confident if students attend, they're going to get a high-quality experience. And we're excited about that. We hope to get more kids out. It's tough with competing with summer vacations. And honestly, we're in a place where other communities I've lived and worked in certainly did not have anything close to the recreational opportunities that are here in Dare County. So we battle a little bit with competing interests, but we're looking forward to a high-quality program.
Dr. Farley, are there other school systems that the kids will be going all summer?
I don't know the other school systems' plans. I think you'll see all kinds.
That's what I was wondering.
So the flexibility is in that 150 hours or the 30 days. I don't think you'll see school systems that go from June 15th to August 15th. So it's harder to get the 150 hours in the way that the law is written versus the 30 days. And, we've held summer school sessions in the past, particularly the last 2 weeks following the school year, for makeups and remediation and so on. And so we've done that previously. As you know, we've had the Read to Achieve camps, mandates, K2. When we talked about that at our last meeting, I think Kelly said we had about 350 students who previously attended. It's hard to get commitment in the summer. So I think you'll see themes across the state, to answer your question, and how they're delivering, but it'll look different for everyone. The good news for us is I would put our teachers up against anyone in the state, and we know that if we can get kids in, that there'll be high quality teaching and learning experiences. Next, I'm going to ask two of our experts to come forward. Dr. Roberts is going to give us a couple of moments on what it looks like for children who are in the Exceptional Children's Program, followed by Ms. Parker highlighting a little bit about the Dual Language Immersion Summer Learning Program. Dr. Roberts.
Thank you. Chairman Balance, members of the school board, thank you for this opportunity to speak to you about our summer programming for students with disabilities. We feel strongly that students with disabilities should have full access to both summer sessions alongside their non-disabled peers. On April 21st, we launched a survey for parents and got excellent feedback. My team and I have been reviewing staff applications and working out the logistics of assigning staff members to classes and to different EC supports. We've also been preparing since last fall to launch our Spire and Sound Sensible programs, literacy programs to all of our summer sites, and we're very excited about this. I would like to go over a few points that, based on feedback from parents, that they have asked for clarification on, so I'm sharing this with you. The first question that parents have asked is, will their children receive the same EC services, IEP services that is, during the summer programs as they do during the regular school year? And the answer, as is often the case with special education, is that it depends. While students will not necessarily be working on their IEP goals, they may have some of the same supports during the summer. What's important is that parents are aware of the plan for students and that schools are upfront about what each student's summer experience will be like. And so we've asked case managers to have conversations with parents and then provide the parents with a written summary of the supports ahead of time so that everybody's in agreement and aware of what the plan is. Secondly, parents have asked if summer programs are replacing the work that we do every summer for our students who meet the criteria for extended school year. And the answer to that is no. Summer programs do not replace other entitlements that students with disabilities may receive. For example, if a student is attending this summer for remediation as an at-risk student and is entitled to extended school year services, then the child will receive them both separately. The third question that we've gotten from parents is about the Spire and Sound Sensible programs. So just a word about those. The Spire lessons are research-based interventions that are teacher-led in small groups, and they're designed to help children make fast and long-lasting gains in literacy. There's no computers involved in our Spire program, and we're looking forward to that nice break from the computers and virtual world. Each 1 hour lesson has 10 components that include word level studies, reading comprehension, spelling, and writing. And then the Sound Sensible program is a more basic, slower paced version of Spire and will be more suited for our students in our adaptive classroom. So everybody's going to be learning some literacy based on their skills. Our teachers have been in training to deliver these programs, and they are very excited about it. If you get the opportunity, ask someone that's been through this training and has the kits and is about to launch it. They're really excited. So to wrap up, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about summer programming for students with disabilities.
Thank you, Rita.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Rita.
Johanna?
Good evening, everybody, members of the board, Dr. Farley. So quickly, mine will be shorter than Dr. Roberts, short and sweet over here. Out of the 450 roughly students that were on the previous slide, about 138 of those are students in the Spanish immersion program, cumulatively in both sessions. It's a pretty high number. So we are going to provide Spanish language core instruction to all students that are in DLI programs at all 4 sites during both sessions. So we're really excited about that. One thing, so we do have different program models at different schools. So we have 50-50 at certain schools, 90-10 at different schools. Our goal really in the summer program is going to be for students to get as much Spanish as possible because, as we all know, in remote, they missed some of the immersive learning experiences they would have gotten in a traditional classroom. So if your child is in an immersion program, they will get core content in Spanish daily if they're in the program. So for families that are listening, if you're like, oh, I was waiting to sign up, go sign up. Because we are going to be able to offer that at every site. Any questions? Nope. All right.
Thank you. So next, sample schedules. So for K3 in session 1, we'll have a grab-and-go breakfast and a morning meeting when students arrive. Literacy-focused learning for K3 students for much of the morning. Lunch delivery, we'll have a working lunch in classrooms. And then students in the first session will be dismissed at 12. We will integrate science skills in daily instruction and supplemented through weekly science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics activities. Teachers will also use the SEL calendars, social emotional learning calendars, created by our guidance counselors to incorporate social emotional lessons during morning meetings and throughout the day. An example of a weekly STEAM activity would be project-based with a literacy focus. Session 2 for K3, which will start in July. Again, a grab-and-go breakfast. This is a 7:30 to 3 o'clock day, full day. In the morning from 7:45 to 11:30, we'll have whole group mini lessons, small group guided reading, individual instruction is needed, daily 5 framework in both reading and math, and independent practice. Students will have an opportunity midday for lunch and research, and then transition to enrichment activities in the afternoon. During that time, core instruction teachers will have planning. So if you are teaching in the core instruction portion of the program, your day is going to be like a 7:30 to 1, and then the enrichment teachers will come in and they'll have their planning period prior to instruction about 11:30, and then they'll go to 3 or 3:30. In the afternoon, students will participate in interest-based enrichment activities, including physical activities, clubs, and STEAM activities. The afternoon session could also be utilized for extra academic remediation. And we will offer in the second session our ASEP program for parents that are interested from 3 to 6, following our typical fees and structures if there's enough interest. So samples, Joe?
Just want to comment, that's a very impressive schedule. Very
Appreciate
impressive.
it. Our team worked extremely hard and very detailed, and Kelly Flores has done a fabulous job working with our principals.
Very impressive.
Thank you.
Dr. Farley, another quick question. Will nurses be available during the school and also resource officers?
So, good question, Frank. We have not gotten over that hurdle yet with the health department. So, I know, of course, with the progress that has been made in the community with the number of COVID cases coming down, our nurses have done a heavy lift throughout the school year in working in with the health department. And so their duties have really differed. I assume that will be eased some by the time we get into June and July. But we need to figure that out and work with the health department. So we could most likely share, and then that also depends upon their months of employment. School resource officers, I don't think we'll have a high need. That's also something that Keith is working with the Sheriff's Department on. So I'm sure if we ask, they'll oblige. I don't see high need, but I'm sure they could be at least on call. Yep, good question. So session 2, this is the, advanced, Dr. Farley, thank you. So for grades 3 through 8 in session 1, again, a grab-and-go breakfast, specific academic remediation using release EOG assessments and small group instruction for students. We'll have a staggered recess, independent practice, and lunch period, and then test-taking strategies sessions for kids because they will be retested. So that looks different in session 1. And then in session 2, again, we'll have breakfast in the morning. This is a full day starting at 7:30. We'll have a literacy block in the morning, outside mask or break time. We've got a couple of those because I had so many lines in here. I didn't put all the mask breaks and outdoor breaks in, but there'll be plenty. We'll have a math block for about an hour, and then students will go into science integrated block, project-based learning, STEAM academic instruction, and then again we'll have a lunch/resource recess period for students as they transition, and then again in the afternoon an array of enrichment opportunities for kids who are interested. Students K-5, because it's how we run ASEP, will have the option for ASEP between 3 and 6 if parents are interested. So at the high school level, what does it look like in session 1? So again, breakfast in the morning, morning meeting, SEL activity, target instruction based upon student needs, focused on remediation of core content standards and small group instruction. We'll take break in the morning. We'll have independent practice and teachers remediate in small groups, test-taking strategies and EOC prep, lunch, and then students are dismissed. So that's the 10-day period in June. And then the second session, again, grab and go breakfast, morning meetings, core instruction in the morning, breaks, core instruction from 9:30 to 10:30. Then we'll get into project-based, again, feed kids, recess, fun, and then get into enrichment activities in the afternoon. And again, depending upon registration, we may have to combine 6 to 12 students in a particular building. So that's just based upon student need and interest. So that's a lot. Questions?
No, I think it looks very comprehensive.
Thank you.
I mean, I like the idea, like Joe said, of having the ASEP program afterwards for the younger ones I think is a big plus. Definitely makes it a little more enticing.
Yep. So appreciate it. So next we'll move to ESSER overview. So we've talked previously about ESSER, but for folks at home who don't know a lot about it, the purpose is there are federal grants allotted to state agencies for the purpose of providing local LEAs, including charter schools, with emergency relief funds to address the impact that COVID has had on learning. And Dare County Schools is receiving $7.5 million over the next 3 years. That is ESSER 2 and ESSER related, ESSER 3 combined. So our overview and proposed framework, we believe in our people, and we think that the greatest impact we can have on learning loss is to bring more highly effective teachers and adults into our system. So our positions about of that $7.5 million, almost 75% of it is going to be in people. What's tricky is there's 114 other school systems that are looking for highly qualified people to go into these positions. So we will be competing with friends from across the state. What also is part of the work that we have to do is we've got 2 stages of 2-year allotment in ESSER 2 and 3 years in ESSER 3, and those positions go away after 3 years. And so as we plan and move through time, we are going to be cognizant of attrition with staff and 2 or 3 years out, being able to keep the highest effective teachers that we've brought in. And it's possible as we move through time, you know, we have, and we'll go through positions, we will have schools that still want to have a math interventionist. And then they may, 3 years from now, try to figure out some way to keep that position. So part of the work is knowing in 3 years, we're not going to have the funding to support those 20 teaching positions or 20 positions in the district. There are the allotments for this in the opportunities that you have for how you can spend this money is wide open. So example, there are some school districts that are paying bonuses to teachers with this money. There are some school districts that are investing in stuff, air purifying systems, HVAC, okay? I don't personally feel that those last couple of categories are going to impact learning loss. and nor does our team. And so thus our preference has been in people and programs for kids as opposed to other. And I think this is a really wise move in terms of how this money is intended to impact learning loss and social emotional learning and wellness of kids. And so I think our plan speaks to that, and that's what it's about. So 13% of our ESSER proposal is in programs, and most of that is going to go to the summer requirements. And so a significant amount of money, again, depends upon how many kids end up attending in the end, but it's an expensive program and it's a mandate. Part of that $1 million in programs also goes to other programs, which we'll feature here in a few moments, and then the possibility of saving some of that money for a second summer school a year out. And then the last slice, 13%, is in professional development. So,
Dr.
positions.
Farley, I have a question.
Pardon?
Do you foresee there being a problem filling those positions due to housing situations?
Do we perceive it being difficult to fill those positions? Possibly, yes. So, you know, I shared at the last Board of Education meeting, the initial proposal build had to be submitted last Friday to DPI. It can change, and as if you recall, when we first talked about the ESSER funding, when we actually receive the money coming down, then we get into a 30-day public comment period and then a finalization of the plan. The plan is like the public school budget. It will keep evolving. So to your point, Ms. Bothwell, if we've got 20 positions we're advertising and we can only fill 12, then we have to strategize on how we're gonna use that funding, and do we shift the focus and put it towards another position? Do we put it towards another program? So that those are some moving targets. The advantage that we have is we have a high-performance school system, and we have a wonderful community. The struggle we have is in housing. So that is a barrier. And so we will be competing with certainly several other districts, but I like our chances based upon our historical ability to recruit effectively. Certainly last year we saw a dip, although we didn't have as much movement between retirements and resignations as we typically have. We certainly saw, because of the pandemic, people didn't want to leave and people were unsure. And so the number of highly qualified candidates that we saw last year was a dip, but hopefully we're on the uprise. And we have some unique positions. We know that a lot of our teachers are going to be interested in, say, being an interventionist or being a coach. So we know our principals are already thinking about, if I'm getting 2 positions at my school, I might be already targeting 2 employees who I'd like to see in these roles. So the key for us is getting these positions out there ASAP, which with the general positions coming out of this meeting, we intend to post immediately. And then that can give us a leg up as opposed to districts who might wait till July. You'd be really behind the 8 ball. And now it's kind of prime time for recruitment. So it's going to be a challenge, but it's a challenge worth pursuing. So we went through a lot of formulas. How do you spend $7.5 million and how can it best impact learning loss? Okay, and we considered, should we have a tiered system and allot positions by ADM? Should we consider schools that have targeted, that are TSI, who have had some lower performance in the past? We considered some of our schools, we have schools that get Title I funding. And so an example like Manual Elementary School has 4 literacy positions at their school, whereas they're the only school that has 4, and part of that is because of the size of their school and Title I funding and so on. We looked at ESL support, we looked at Exceptional Children Program support. You name a category and a program, we considered it. In the end, we decided that every school's been impacted by the pandemic, and we think the best approach, and we asked principals and school improvement teams submitted requests in our budget build, and then we doubled down with principals for them to go back and to think about their own school and their needs, and everyone put together a proposal. In the end, we thought the most equitable approach was to give every school 2 positions. So that's part of our plan. Now, and we'll get to those positions in a moment. So every single Dare County school will get 2 additional positions. We are going to hire 3 MTSS intervention coordinators, and I'll talk a little bit more about MTSS here in a moment. Those are district-wide positions that will be in schools. Up front, I've cut $800,000 in the central office budget in 15 months. We were not going to stack central office and put any positions into central office. So none of these positions will be at central office. The coordinators will be school-based, and we intend to hire an elementary MTSS coordinator and a middle school coordinator and a high school coordinator, and this is what our schools asked for. What our schools have asked for, we're providing. We're also adding a school psychologist. Part of the funding has to be wrapped around how you're investing in social emotional learning for kids, and the school psychologist will give us an ability to work with counselors hand in hand with these coordinators in social emotional learning concepts and strategies and programs in our schools. So when you take the 2 times 10, we've got 20 positions, the 3 MTSS and the school psych. And then that equates, as you project with benefits over 3 years' time, to that 5.2 or so that we, or 5.5 we looked at earlier. So what is MTSS? And Dr. Roberts has previously done a couple presentations on this, but this is an evolving program for us. So it's a multi-tiered framework which promotes school improvement through engaging research-based academic and behavioral practices, as well as social emotional learning. MTSS employs a systems approach using data-driven problem solving to maximize growth for all, and we have teams at each school. Why MTSS? It empowers teachers with a problem-solving framework, process, and tools to help all students reach their full academic, social, and emotional potential. And then in practice, the framework is built using multiple levels of support from district team, which we have, down to student teams that are aligned with resources, programs, policies across the district. And the focus is on academics of kids, meeting their behavioral needs, looking at attendance and social emotional learning. So those coordinators will be working hand in hand with our school-based teams and our guidance counselors in addressing social emotional learning needs. And this is going to be a real boost for us. So programs, so we had personnel, now we're to programs. So legislation requires that our summer program be funded by ESSER. And we, again, that's a moving target based upon the number of students who attend. And it's an expensive program because there are built-in bonuses for teachers, which we've talked about previously. So we're ballparking maybe $600,000 or so. That also may depend upon where we are with transportation, knock on wood. We have to provide digital assessment tools for summer programming, and we are getting feedback. So we're, one of the things I think we do really well in Dare County schools is get feedback from staff. And I'll work through our process here a little bit. And Dr. Parker and Kelly Flora have been going out to every single school, working with the principals and talking about our approach and opportunities in our ESSER plan. Professional development, so we have great need to do some more curriculum development with our teachers this summer. We're going to have to do a lot of training with MTSS interventions, the interventionists we hire in general, but also that are MTSS related. ESL strategies, social emotional learning, literacy development, and we've opened it up to staff to give us feedback on what their professional development needs are. So what would this look like in each building? Every building will receive an interventionist position. This will be either, could be in reading or math, or in the secondary schools, it could be a core subject area. What does the interventionist do? Well, they work with kids in small groups who are at risk, who need a lot of extra. They also could team teach with teachers. One of the positives of the pandemic is a lot of the work that we've done in pods with teachers working together. They also could do some coaching. So it'll look a little bit different at each school. Certainly an elementary interventionist looks much different than a 912. But every single school and their priority, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, asks for an interventionist position, and so we're providing that. The second position is going to be based upon the specific needs of the building, principal recommendations, and staff feedback. So our principals, as I said, have all submitted their top 3 priorities. This also is in line with what they submitted for their budget. And the ask depends upon the school. Some schools have asked for an ESL teacher. Some schools have asked for another exceptional children's teacher. Some schools have asked for a literacy coach. Some have asked for a guidance counselor. So there's an array of options that are out there. We're always careful in communicating feedback about the impacts. Let's say, if First Flight Elementary School asks for another guidance counselor with 330 kids in that school, and we allotted that position, and Cape Hatteras Elementary School, Miss Benton's school's got 320, and there's only one guidance counselor. That creates some inequity, both short and long term. So we're going to be very specific in looking at how we, the formulas and how we allot positions when we make these final decisions. But we want it from the school up. They've provided their prioritized asks, and now they're working with their staff to get their feedback, which we think is a pretty sound approach and is appreciated across the district.
Dr. Farley.
Yes, sir.
One quick question. With the extended time for the students in the school during the summer, is that going to cause you problems with maintenance or Chromebooks?
Frank, you always ask the really good questions. You all do, but Frank digs into those details. Good question, Frank. Yes. So once we completed the registration process, or the initial, then we knew how many good kids were going to attend and where they were going to be, and then how we would create sites. And then we turned that over to transportation and child nutrition and maintenance. So Mr. Gerganis and his team know the weeks where we're going to be in certain schools, and he's doing a workaround with projects, because we are replacing some carpets, and I know we're painting a couple of schools, and he's ready with his team to be able to work around that. And he's known for some time that we would have an extensive summer program. Before the legislation was passed, we obviously have been planning for a summer program since December, knowing that it was the strong likelihood that there would be a mandate. So that's a really good question. What was the second part of that? Oh, Chromebooks. Yes. So Dr. McBride and her team, they have to put their hands in every single device, and that happens as soon as kids go home June 9th. And so that kind of fast forwards some of their work, but they'll be ready. And as we figure out exactly how many kids we're going to serve at each school, we've also talked about a rotation of our instructional technology facilitators, and may assign one to a couple of schools for support during the summer. Yep. So next steps. School staff meetings are currently happening. I think Kelly and Keith have gotten to 2 schools each, and all schools they'll work with the school principal between now and the 20th. Our MTS coordinators, school psychs, and school interventionist positions, we can just post general. Once we narrow down what the positions are going to look like, they may look different at First Flight Elementary School, and those job responsibilities may look different than Manual Elementary School. We'll figure that out. We want to give our teachers an opportunity to apply for these new positions. So currently, if we have a Dare County school teacher who's interested in one of the interventionist positions, they can apply. They don't have to go through the formal DPI process that's arduous and takes forever. They can submit a Google form to Ms. Kinzel with a letter of interest. And then once we complete our teacher input and feedback portion of our process, and we post the additional positions, DCS employees will be able to, at the end of the month, apply for those if they're interested. And to Ms. Bothwell's comment earlier about our ability to recruit, it's in our best interest to move as quickly as possible in getting these positions out there and starting to make decisions. Because if you have a superstar 8th grade English teacher who's now the interventionist at the school, you've got to hire behind that superstar teacher in 8th grade. So a lot of work that needs to be done. Internal candidates for school positional opportunities, again, they can apply. We can't guarantee that, kind of back to that 3-year period of time, if you are that superstar 8th grade English teacher and you apply to be an interventionist, we can't guarantee that you're going to be able to go back to 8th grade in 3 years. But if you're a tenured teacher and you're effective, you surely will have a job. So we'll have to figure that out as we go. But again, through attrition and movement with students and teacher allotments, we'll figure it out. Even though we have an extremely low teacher turnover rate for the last 10 to 15 years, we always hire at least 20 teachers or so. So with attrition, we're confident we'll be able to keep the most effective teachers, certainly. positions will open up in the coming weeks, and then there could be some tweak. Certainly, there'll be a lot of job descriptions we're working on, and salary information that could be different based upon the category that we're hiring. So, feedback. So, again, we're holding meetings at the school level, and we'll show you an example of what the feedback form looks like. Dr. Parker, if you could click on that. So, every teacher is getting a similar presentation which you just got or received, as we've talked, and then they get an opportunity to identify who they are, where they teach, and then aside from the interventionist position, here's a question: what other position would you view as valuable and needed in your building? And they give us input. What professional development needs or ideas do you have for your school and yourself? What programs would you like us to explore in the next upcoming year or years? And then we always ask, please share anything else that's on your mind or any questions you may have, and sometimes we get some dissertations, but that's okay. So everyone's providing input. As I said, Kelly and Keith have got to about half the schools at this point, and it's been very well received. Our plan has been very well received. And eventually we'll get to a place a little later in the summer where we get to, there's never really a final plan, to be honest with you, with all these moving pieces, but we'll have a little bit more formal process. And we are going to ask for parent input on our plan, and we may even move up the timeline so we do that a little sooner rather than later, because we do value parent community input. So, questions?
I have a question.
Yep.
Going back to the middle. I thought I knew most of the acronyms, and you said SEL learning?
Social emotional learning.
All right, thank you.
Yep. That's a kind of a new developing term, so that one's not been around forever. Good question.
You got me on that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And our team's been fantastic, working together, and Sandy's done the heavy lifting in submitting these proposals to DPI, both for summer and ESSER. So 3 cheers to Sandy and the team. It's a big team effort. Lastly, just briefly on items for information. So graduation update. So currently we are operating at 50% capacity outside. So, and that's likely to change. It's been kind of informally indicated by the governor. By the time we get to June 10 and 11 or 11 and 12 graduations, it could be wide open. We don't know, but we have to plan accordingly at the 50% capacity. So Sheila Davies has approved our local plans, and we are working at, we will have them at the traditional sites. So First Flight High School will be on a football field. Manny will be at the Lost County Theater in Cape Hatteras because they have a small graduating class. It will still be in the gymnasium. We're meeting all the state mandates. Currently, we didn't want to have a venue, so it's based upon fire capacity. So the fire capacity at First Flight High School's football field is 2,000, and then half of that obviously is 1,000, and that's how many participants we could have. So when you do the math on in the Lost County Theater, I think 620, and Cape Hatteras, I think is 240 at 50%. So that means that families will get 4 tickets at First Flight, 4 at Hatteras, and 3, because the restrictions are a little bit different, at Lost County will get 3 currently. If we have to go inside, then we're making preparation for 50% in gymnasiums, and we hope that by the actual graduation date that that's lifted, and then we could get more folks out. So we did consider, as we were thinking about, I've gotten this question a couple times, did we consider more than one ceremony to have more tickets? And our principals and their staffs feel pretty strongly that our kids all want to graduate with the class together, and so we did not consider that. We also wanted to be kind of in the ballpark of the same ticket allotment. In other words, I didn't want to have 4 at First Flight and 12 at Cape Hatteras, so we're pretty much there. And again, things could change, but based upon the current mandates, our plan has been approved, and we have to have that with the Park Service, who is in charge of the Lost County site. So that was a requirement. And Dr. Davies gave us really good feedback on our detailed plans. So everything's a go. We're looking forward to a wonderful experience, and hopefully by the time we get there, then more restrictions have been lifted, and that's probably rather likely. Any questions on graduation? Feels good to get some normalcy back in what we're doing, and we're looking forward to it. It's an exciting time of year for kids, and our proms are coming up in 2 weeks, and our principals have done a great job in providing kids with a wonderful experience. So we're excited about that.
Anybody have any questions before we move on? Thank you, Dr. Farley.
Thank you.
Next up, we have unfinished business, the approval of the Dare County Schools proposed budget for 2021-2022. Candy, Tilly, we all have had this budget since the budget workshop, so we've had an opportunity to review it, compare it, tear it apart. Does anybody have any questions about it? Anything they want to ask? Then we will need a motion to approve. A motion by Mr. Tauber?
I second.
Second by Frank and Susan, but Frank.
A duet.
A duet. Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have a budget.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And I want to thank Candy and her team.
Yes, thank you, Candy, and Russ, and all the people that get together to make that happen. It's a lot. It's a lot.
And I also want to thank the board who took an extensive amount of time in reviewing between CIP and the budget and the different meetings we've had. So we appreciate your support greatly.
That's why we're here. Next up, we have new business. Ms. Kinzel, we have the first reading of proposed policy manual updates. So this is a first reading.
Yes. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Farley. Yet another sign that we're returning to some normalcy because we're here with some new policies for you to consider. Again, as we typically do, we receive updates from the North Carolina School Boards Association, and they provide us with lots of updates as they come through. This latest spring update included about 48 policies. If you'll notice, I only have 11 for you to consider. Many of the policies that were put before us were some technical revisions, updated legal references, or updated policies that simply were listed as resources on the current policies we have. These 11 policies, 2 of which will be new policies to Dare County Schools Policy Manual, and they've been noted as such. But these 11 policies will have an impact on the start of school. We want to allow the board an opportunity to be able to review and make suggestions for any changes during the first read so they can be adopted before school closes and can be included in documents that we send out in our Code of Student Conduct and Parent Notification manuals, as well as having them available for staff to review and sign off on as we do at the beginning of each school year. So it's important that these 11 are reviewed and considered for adoption before we start the next school year. With your indulgence, as I typically do, I'll give you the fast and furious and give you a quick summary of each of the policies as we go through. The first policy is on professional and staff development. This particular policy is going to add the requirement that is now mandated that each school system provide a mental health training program. As you'll see that this is also referenced in a later policy. The state is requiring all districts to create and provide training, initial training of all staff members of 6 hours to be able to help address a comprehensive school-based mental health plan requirements. And so then every year after, then there'd be kind of updates. DPI is providing resources to help develop that particular training. And I would like to thank in advance Dr. Roberts and her team who are working together to not only create the training, but to create the comprehensive mental health plan that will be shared with the board for adoption before we close out the school year, so probably at our next meeting. Okay. The next policy on our list is a policy review and evaluation. We don't currently have this policy in our manual, but this policy provides a policy that would allow the superintendent to make minor changes and correct technical revisions, grammatical errors that sometimes pop up when we don't always catch them on the first read. But again, this would be allow us to be able to make those changes without having to come to a full reading of the board and approval. These policies would, though, be on the consent agenda, noting that there has been some technical revisions. The next policy is actually a regulation that accompanies our acceptable use policy and student laptop user agreement. Dr. McBride has reviewed these policies and has found that it's going to have more longevity by not having specific costs inserted in the policy, but rather referencing like a lost cord, any equipment that has to be replaced by parents, and the cost associated with it will be a market value rather than saying it'll be $25, which might change next year. So we've put in more general information in that particular policy for review. The next policy, 3410, is testing and assessment program. This policy was recently reviewed in January by the board, and shortly after that time period, Dr. Parker and I had some meetings with principals at the middle school level, and we realized that we needed some consistency with how we were implementing the 20% of our final either an EOG, EOC, because at the middle school we provide both. We have the opportunity for both, but how it was being applied to the final grade. So to be consistent across the board, we've inserted some language here that would require a 20% weighted in the final grade, much like what we're doing, exactly like what we're doing at the high school level. So that's going to be across all of our secondary schools then. The next policy, 3610, is the counseling program policy. This one, the most significant change in this policy is the changes in the reporting requirements language that covers all incidents of child maltreatment. And again, that's referenced again in a later policy. But this policy has been reorganized and has been updated to reflect the latest areas of focus in the counseling program as developed by DPI. So again, we want to keep current with this as we move forward. The next policy, which again I've kind of, I skipped one. At the homeless students policy, this policy has revisions that were triggered by new language and administrative rules that were adopted by the State Board of Education. So you'll see those things were required. The next policy has to do with child abuse and related threats to child safety. Again, this updates the reporting requirements. In the last paragraph, you'll see that that the state requires us, any administrator who knows of or believes that a licensed employee has engaged in conduct that would justify revoking of their license, that it's now included in there rather than specific language to specific acts. So it generalizes that and puts the onus on administrators to make the report. Okay, the next policy is on attendance. Again, this one has some significant updates and changes based on our current policy is very vague and very general. This policy includes information that is specifically outlined in the school attendance and student accounting manual, and it really kind of specifies many things that I believe you'd have to go to a second source to be able to find. Lots of times, what do we do with tardies. How do we account for tardies? And that was not in our initial policy. So this policy includes much of those updates. The next policy has to do with the student health services. Again, it's been a little bit reorganized with a new section that addresses the school system's mental health plan that I've mentioned earlier. Then almost last policy has to do with the annual independent audit. This is a new policy for us. No, I'm sorry, not this one. The next one is. The annual independent audit policy includes some language that not only includes that the auditor will comply with state requirements, but will also then provide the board with a report, which is standard practice anyway, so now we have it in policy. It's being recommended. The last policy then has to do with limited claim settlement. This revision, we did ask our attorneys for some advice on this, and Schwartz and Shaw were happy to oblige, and the policy you're seeing there has been viewed and recommended by our attorneys. And Mr. Schwartz, if you'd like to speak to that, I will loan you my...
This is a policy that grew out of some lawsuits where governmental bodies, local governmental bodies, were settling some claims, and there's discretion that was being exercised by the local governmental bodies so that they were settling some claims, and people who thought they were similarly situated were not getting treated equally. So the argument was that the governmental bodies were acting in an arbitrary manner or a discriminatory manner in the way they were treating different claimants who brought actions or threatened to bring actions against local governing bodies and then got settlements or didn't get settlements or got settlements in different amounts. There is some case law on this that is driving the recommendation from the School Boards Association to adopt this policy. We think it's a good policy, but we made some revisions to it so that one of the revisions that we recommended was, let me get to this policy. Oh, this isn't the marked up version. Okay. One of the revisions that we recommended were in the factors to be considered. So in the recommended policy at section C, settlement, it says all factors, these are the factors that the board will recognize and consider among others. These are not limiting factors, but it says that all factors need not be given equal weight and no one factor will be controlling. And then it lists the different factors to be considered so that there's some measure of consistency in at least the application of the different factors. One of the things that we took out was similarly situated, the language said something like similarly situated, similar circumstances or similarly situated circumstances. And we didn't like that language. We didn't think it was particularly consistent with the case law on this. And just to give you an example, if the circumstances leading to an accident are that outside the cafeteria we had banana peels on the floor, and a healthy young student athlete comes and slips on the banana peel and bounces right back up like nothing happened, or has a sprained ankle, that's one thing. If a 70-year-old visitor to the building slips on the same banana peel at the same place, the injury could be terrible. Okay, so we took out, there were some examples in the policy, there's some factors in the policy like that, and we took those out and revised some of the other factors in there that we think more closely align with case law.
Thank you, Rich, for that. This was one of those policies that came down from the School Boards Association, and it was very brief and just said, consult your attorney. And so I turned it over to him, and I said, okay, it's yours. All right, so.
I have a question. Rich,
yes, sir.
do we, a circumstance like that happens, do we refer to our insurance carrier? And ultimately, are they charged with making that determination? Well, or at least recommending to us? So,
Yeah, we would turn that sort of thing over to the insurance carriers, and then, they would deal with it most of the time. So, we don't usually have to address these things.
yeah, I mean, because there's a lot of considerations here in terms of things to look at, and just figures if you have insurance.
And to the point where these accidents, if an accident happens, we have processes in place through human resources that would require reporting to us so we can get people to the right provider and at least make sure that we have them going to specific facilities that work with our insurance.
And this is just the first read, so you have time.
No
to
action needed right now, so
Yeah,
take
you
your
have time
time
to
and
review still.
bring back please send me any of the suggested changes ahead of time so we can make sure it doesn't change the policy's intent and make sure that it's cleared through our attorneys.
Madam Chair, the next item on the agenda was added, the closed session for legal and student, and we do not need that any longer.
Okay. So we do not need closed session. All right, is there anything else on the policy, Sandy? You good?
I think that's plenty. Thanks for letting me come back to the,
And nobody has any
to the
questions at
dance
this
floor.
time?
Madam Chair, I have one quick announcement. It just came to me. Catherine Schuster from First Flight High School won the state golf championship today at Pinehurst.
Third time, right?
She's only the second female in the history of the North Carolina High School Athletic Association to win the tournament 4 consecutive years.
4 years.
Wow.
Awesome. Congratulations.
She won by 6 shots.
Wow. You might have a challenger.
Oh, she could whip me, believe me.
She might teach you something.
Yeah, she could. That's
All
great
right,
news.
does anybody have anything else they want to add or say? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I move we adjourn.
Motion by Ms. Lawler, second by Mr. Twitty. Any further discussion?
I'd like to thank everybody at Central Office for all that you've done towards getting ready for the summer program and the budget and all that you all do every day. I feel like we have the best Central Office.
Yes.
And superintendent and assistant superintendent ever. So thank you all so much.
You guys have created a wonderful team.
Thank you.
And hello, Rachel Benton.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any further discussion? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.